Ladies and gentlemen, Ronan is about to come on and absolutely blow your mind in terms of increasing visibility and impact, talking about the distinction between content versus context. And we're going to have a lot of fun with that conversation. Before we dive into that, let's talk about the announcements. You are a world-changing human being. Whether you recognize it or not, you're truly making every day your greatest possible self, and that is a world changer in my opinion. If you want more support in being that world-changing human being, I love supporting you. Number one, if you're at the level where you're getting your message out, you're doing interviews, or you want to explore that, let's talk. I would love to consider you for a guest appearance on becoming your greatest possible self. So let me know if you're up for that. We can talk about that. If you want to start your own podcast, if you want to learn how I did it, what I wish I knew a couple years ago before starting my podcast that would have really made a difference, I would love to share that with you as well and help you launch your own podcast. So if you want to find out about that, let's look at that. Or if you just want general coaching with your specific mission, vision, purpose, and business, I'm happy to explore that with you as well. And I love coaching and helping people to live their purpose. So you can get a hold of me on Facebook, facebook.com/th3burns, on Instagram at I am millionaire Chris, or via email, chris@beyourgps.com. And I look forward to talking to you about how we can support each other. Next up is the iTunes review of the week. And this week, it's by the feminine one. Not the feminine one, just feminine one. And she, I think it's a she, says Chris Burns' podcast is filled with knowledgeable speakers and thought leaders. Love it. Thanks so much, Feminine One. I appreciate you. If you want to give us a review, go to beyourgps.com/iTunes. You can be shouted out on a future 12-hour marathon all day long as the review of the week. And while you're there, of course, I wanted and plugged in to the sources of empowerment, to the sources that help you become your greatest possible self. And that, in my opinion, is this show. So stay connected, subscribe, get all the latest updates and episodes. We release a new episode every day, and never miss an amazing interview and world-changing human being who's here to help you become your GPS. So definitely subscribe. Now, I'm going to introduce Ronan in just a bit here. Make sure you have a pen, have a paper, be ready to take notes, because this could be the transformational conversation that makes the difference for you and where you're at and making a bigger impact in the world, okay? Growing your business, growing yourself. So stay connected, stay tuned all the way from the start to the finish, because you are a finisher and it feels so good to complete what you start. I can totally attest, after 102 12-hour marathons, it feels dang good finishing one of these things. So let me tell you, finishing an hour, it feels good too. And you want to work up to the 12-hour after, take some time. So let's introduce Ronan. Most experts make the mistake of picking just tone mode to deliver their expertise through. Accountants make money through accounting. Trainers make money from training. Chefs cook. The secret to becoming a niche leader and having more impact and revenue is to diversify how you deliver what you do. And I think it was picking just one mode. That's what I meant. Not tone mode, one mode. One mode, people usually just do one thing. Ronan helps self-employed professionals leverage their expertise and create a bigger impact. He helps identify and package up the most valuable part of their knowledge to create a whole new revenue stream. Ronan loves seeing the benefits that mastermind groups have on both the instructors and the participants, and has helped hundreds of business owners increase authority, profit, and expertise. And before Ronan jumps on, I just want to totally validate that masterminds have made such a massive difference in my life. They've made such a huge contribution to me growing, being a part of them, hosting my own. So we're absolutely blessed to have Ronan here with us today. Ronan, are you ready to rock the house, sir?
I am, Chris. Yes, indeed. Let's do this.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you being here. Welcome to becoming your greatest possible self. You're truly a human being who's empowering the world to become our greatest possible selves, because Mastermind, that's the whole intention, right? A third and greater mind is formed from, two or more people coming together in a spirit of harmony to really create a bigger impact. I'm sure you have your own definition and, vision of Mastermind. So I'm excited to hear more about that and empower our audience to understand the potential, the specifics of masterminding, and how it can really benefit them, man. So thanks for being here.
Well, Chris, they say that when two or more people come together, and you and I, we're almost sort of clones. I'm like the older version than you. We've got the same hairstyle, and we've almost got the same shirt as well. So
Yes. I love it. I love it, man.
I didn't get the memo about what you were wearing.
Dude, it's like it just we're vibing. You're so aligned. Where the alignment is there. So we're gonna dive right in. Specifically,
Exactly.
this conversation I know is gonna make a huge difference from where you're standing, your perspective. And the theme today is who are the 5 associates who you're around the most. And Ronan, this doesn't necessarily mean I want you to list those 5 people, although you can. It's more of this principle of who do you surround yourself with the most, and how does that influence you. So I'd love to hear how that has shaped you on your journey.
Sure. Well, I mean, it sounds quite, when you first sort of hear that and you look around, it sounds quite sort of negative, or it sounds like a poor reflection of yourself. You know, who are those sort of 5 people? And look, we've all got friends that we originally sort of hang out with, and then, you know, we lose touch over time. We've got relatives that they're relatives, so they, you know, we surround ourselves with them. But if you look at the people that really sort of inspire you to do more, to be more, you almost have to deliberately cultivate that circle.
Yes.
Because there are people that are quite negative, and certainly when you're in the entrepreneur space, a lot of people that have a job just don't get it. Right. They don't understand the sacrifices, the hours we work, the risks that we take, and most of them will tell you, well, you know, stay in your corporate job, stay where you are. So you need those people around you that are going to encourage you to be more and to do more. So you almost have to deliberately, as I said, find those people and start to surround yourself with them, because you feed off each other. Would you agree with that, Chris?
100%, Ronan. I love that, and I love that you have to deliberately cultivate your circle. You have to choose wisely. Who are the members of this circle that I want to allow in, and who am I going to say, you know what, I love you, and you're just not meant to be in my inner circle because you don't contribute to my life in the way that I'm looking for, and vice versa. I'm not able to contribute to your life at the level that I know I'm meant to for those inner circle people, right? It's a two-way street to be able to really grow together and be our greatest possible selves together.
Yeah, you're looking for people with knowledge, with energy, with passion, with visions similar to yours that align all those things. And they don't happen every day. You do have to find them and cultivate them and work through them. And at some stage, like mastermind groups, you reach a point where it's not quite working for you anymore, and you find the next challenge, the next group, and I call it spiraling up. So you look at the most successful people in the world, Tony Robbins, and you hear his backstory, and you know, he started out as a nobody, serving at some of these events, or these marketing events, and eventually built himself up. So he has different group of people he surrounds himself now than when he started. So it sounds, sometimes it sounds a little bit almost, I suppose, fake, or even
cold.
That's the word I'm looking for. Like you're deliberately trying to cull people. It's not that. It's just that if it works for both and everybody in that group, then you all grow together.
Right. And I think it's really respecting that there's seasons of life too. Not everyone is going to grow as fast as each other, and to recognize that there's certain communities and groups and masterminds that are meant to be together for a certain season. I think families are such a foundational place to really recognize that when you grow up, you have some length of time, some season that your family is there with you, whether they're responsible for you or they teach you how to be responsible for yourself and fend for yourself. They are, you're with those people. And then at some point you say, I can go out on my own. I can spread my wings and go do what my heart calls me to do. My source guides me and leads me to do. And I think that a lot of people feel like they're trapped in whatever family or work environment or environments that they wind up in, rather than deliberately creating their environment, creating their people that they're around. So I know that you, Ronan, are super intentional about cultivating these groups of people that, groups of people with similar intentions, wanting to grow together, who are in a certain season of life to be able to grow themselves. So I would love to hear a little bit more about that. Tell us about how you serve your clients, what you stand for, Ronan.
Well, the intro you talked about, as I said, just one sort of delivery mode. So I look for people that are ready to make that bigger impact. And some people think it needs to be either impact or income. but they coexist. You
Yes.
can have both at the same time, and they feed off each other. The more impact you have, the more income you have, and
Yeah.
so it's not a either or proposition. So I deliberately look for people that really are looking for the next step up. What's the next evolution? How can I change the game I'm playing? How can
Mm.
I play at a bigger fish in a pond than I currently am, and have that desire and that hunger, because
Mm.
everything else is teachable. So it really just comes from that. You can't teach hunger and desire. People either sort of have it or they don't. So that's what I look for as the key driving factor: is this a good person? Is this a good
Mm.
fit? Will they be a good masterminder leading forward and leading other people and teaching them what they know?
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful, man. I love it. So it's really just helping people level up, make a bigger impact. And masterminds are one of the vehicles that you provide for people to be able to make that impact. So I want to dive even more into the context versus content conversation in just a bit. Before that, though, I want to get us and our audience connected with you and how you got to this point today. What's your journey been like, man? Where did it all begin for you?
Oh, I've had a very interesting, I wouldn't even call it a career. I worked on cruise ships, and when I was 23, the ship I was on sunk off the wild coast of South Africa.
Oh, my goodness.
Um, I was one of the lowest paid people on the ship, and this incredible story of a huge storm, 60-foot swells, 100-mile-an-hour winds, and all of a sudden we started shipping water, and
Wow.
the senior officers and crew all abandoned us. So I, at the time, worked in the gift shop, and I ended up helping people into lifeboats. Helicopters came first thing in the morning, and I'm helping winch people up to there. And it taught me like an intrinsic value of mine, which was helping people. Because, as I said, I wasn't even trained at this. I'd only been on cruise ships for like 8 weeks. And then for the next sort of 9 years, I still just traveled the world working on cruise ships, worked my way up to casino manager, and then started my own business here in Australia when I immigrated here. And I ran an events business for over a decade.
Mm.
And then about 5 years ago, I was in my very first mastermind, and this light bulb moment came to me. And I'm sure this has happened to you, Chris, and your sort of purpose. You go, wow, I love doing this. I want to know more. And I don't call it a passion, I call it an obsession. So
Yeah.
I've read just about every book there is on masterminds. I've been in masterminds, I've run them, and I'm just obsessed with how we can collaborate more and how we can become better people than we currently are in business and in life as well. It's a two-way street. There
Yeah.
is a symbiotic relationship between your business and you. If you're not growing, your business isn't growing. And I
Mm.
mean intellectually, so, and spiritually, and all those things. So they're very interconnected. So that's how I became this person that became obsessed with masterminds.
Wow. Dude, I love it. I love it. And just I think that life changing moment of a cruise ship that's sinking and you've been there for 8 weeks and you're like, man, what am I gonna do? These upper class quote unquote people abandon us. Like these people don't have anyone who's helping them or leading them, and you just rally to the call, so to speak, and you jump up and you start serving, and you recognize that natural leadership tendency in you. And then fast forward through a decade or two, and you join your first mastermind, and you're really there recognizing, hey, I love this stuff. I love connecting. I love this mechanism, this vehicle, how this works, and I want to go deep and explore it even more.
Yeah, and I suppose every business needs to align to your core beliefs, values, intrinsically what you're good at. We're all looking for flow in business. We're looking to
Mm.
find that sweet spot where work doesn't feel like work and it just
Yeah.
becomes effortless.
Mm.
And some people never ever find that, and some people need to deliberately look for it.
Mm.
And often our genius is inside there, and we recognize it in other people, and often we're quite often the last person to notice that. So sometimes, again, what I do in the mastermind is show people their genius. They're part of their expertise that people really, really want.
Yeah.
And it's once you're inside the jar, it's hard to see it to read the label on the bottle. You know that phrase? It's a little bit like that. We're all good at giving advice to other people, but we're not necessarily particularly good at seeing our own genius or seeing our own blind spots.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. It's such a powerful, for me, hiring my first coach was such a powerful awakening of what's possible. And to get that, for me, it was one-on-one support. I was like, man, I like anything is possible with this support. And even better than just one person's perspective, it's a group of peers and successful people, professionals, people who have ambition, people who have drive, people who are out to make an impact, increase their income. Surrounding ourselves with people like that, it's just like, man, you just feel like a pack, like a tribe of people, a
Yep.
small tribe of people who's unstoppable, who's on this mission to change the world, and together anything is possible. It's such a beautiful experience.
That's definitely the vibe and the attitude that you want to create. And when that does happen, you're just inspired to do so much more and to step into that person that you ultimately want to be.
Yeah. So beautiful, man. So fast forward, you jump into Masterminds, and now your big focus is diving into making a bigger impact in the world, increasing income, and specifically, I know today we wanted to talk about context versus content. And I wanted to hear, where did that conversation come up from, and why is that important for you?
Well, I heard the quote from Derek Sivers about 4 or 5 years ago through Tim Ferriss's book, is that if it was just about information, we'd all be multimillionaires with perfect abs, right?
Yep,
and it's a really good line to
Mm.
stop and think about the amount of information that we are bombarded with. And you see everybody, scrolling on their phone all the time. And I read a lot of books, and that's all good. But at some point, when the rubber hits the road, that's the context versus content. So content is free, and it's been almost commoditized now.
Yeah.
Everybody gives away white papers, blogs, how to do this, how to do that. But what it's lacking for most people is the context to apply that.
Yeah.
What does that mean to me? How do I fit that into my specific needs, ideas, and where I'm at? And it's a kind of like if you've heard of the flipped or inverted classroom, which is how we teach our masterminds, is that you consume the content, and then you come back to the person who is the subject matter expert that has the experience and the knowledge, and you find your sticking point, and then they help you with that to allow that context to work from that consumption. And some people might get the whole thing. We've been at school. Sometimes there's just 2, 3 different ways to solve the same problem, or to come up with the skill set of how to teach that knowledge. So there's no right or wrong one, except in math, 1 + 1 is always 2.
Yep.
But there's different ways to sort of learn those things. But adding that context, okay, well, in this position, in this situation, you should do that. Or I found when I did this, that changed. And again, within that, you talked about that mastermind, a different perspective and that group learning. Sometimes you can get 4 or 5 people come up with, oh yeah, I tried that, didn't work. But if you do this, then you go, okay, I get it now. So you're helping them, you're actually helping them get to the point where they can apply that content into some kind of context for them and learn it. But also you're getting them past their sticking points where they're stuck, and it's different for everybody. So the expert, the subject matter expert that's running their own mastermind, also is working where they're most needed. They're not spending an hour just going over a theory and idea. That's been learned in advance. They're coming where they're most needed, at the sharp end, where people say, I'm stuck on this, or I didn't quite understand that. How does that apply to me? So that's the difference, the key difference between context versus content.
That's beautiful.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Absolutely, Ronan. And I think what comes to my mind, and I'd love to hear your interpretation on this, is when I went to 3-day seminars, I would get all this information. I would get all this learning, 3-day or even more. I'd get all the information, and it was great. It was inspiring. It was motivational. But the context of how do I actually apply this to my life, as well as like ongoing support to continue to integrate it, that was missing from those seminars. And I found that coaching or masterminds, that more ongoing, sustained teaching and integration, that's what really makes the difference. I think both are important, like to have a 3-day, hey, let's go deep, let's break through, let's create the structures and, really have you grasp this information and connect with it. And then the integration and application and accountability of it. Would you say that that's kind of along the lines that you're talking about?
Absolutely, because learning doesn't happen until something changes. So if you spent 3 days there and you come up with all these, if they talk about all these great key concepts, ideas, how to do this, how you can level up, how you can do marketing, whatever. If you don't ever apply them, then it's wasted knowledge. So learning doesn't happen until something actually changes and you go, not only do I understand this, but I've implemented it, and I've implemented it in a way that works for me, which again will morph. There is no, it's not the bathrobe, one size fits all. For most people, there's nuances and subtleties. You've got to work out what works for you and applying that. So absolutely, that's the key difference, is that when you actually apply it and then it changes, you've actually learned something versus just consuming content.
Beautiful. And I'm curious, have you found anything that helps people to shift their perspective and see things from another's point of view without having that third party, that other person to be there? Because I know context is like asking better questions to be able to interpret and integrate and utilize the information. Is there anything you could recommend to our audience that they can just start to do on their own to be able to effectively integrate and use that content more?
One of the things I've implemented in my life in the last 12 months, and I do this every week, sometimes a couple of times a week, is I just spend some thinking time. So we are hardwired to look for solutions, and we're hardwired to be busy and doing something. But what happens is that we automatically jump to almost the first idea we have. All right, need more marketing, need more sales, hire a marketer.
Right.
But potentially that might not be the best idea for you. So spending that thinking time to come up, and the thinking time gives you the better quality questions that you just asked, is that to say, okay, well, this is my problem. I think this might be the solution, but let me work through alternatives. Let me sit down and spend half an hour working on the real reason why. And as you do that, you get deeper and deeper, and you come up with all your subconscious learning. So again, we talked about, going to a 3-day seminar, reading all these books, listening to a program like this, and then the information is often buried back there. It needs time to percolate back up and go, oh yeah, I did this course 2 years ago. There's a part in there which is perfect for what I know now, and I'm missing that, or I've forgotten about it. So getting those ideas to percolate back up, if you're on your own, spending that thinking time is critical to come up with the better questions. Yeah. And the other one is the 5 whys. Have you ever heard of the 5 whys, Chris?
Yes, I have, but share with our audience, man.
So it's a great way of getting past those surface level problems. So let me give you a good example. So you say, well, I was late today. I was late delivering this piece of content for my client. Okay, so why are you late delivering that? Well, I just ran out of time. Why did you run out of time? Well, I just spent so much time, I looked at my day, working on something else. And why do you do that? So, well, I don't track how much time I spend on my tasks each day. And then you finally get to the real problem of why you're late in delivering something. It's because you underestimate the time it takes to do pretty much everything you do each day, and therefore you're overly optimistic. So going through the 5 whys on just about most of the problems you have allow you to get past those surface level problems to the root cause and potentially change those.
Wow. Dude, that's powerful. That is so gold. So amazing practice for anyone who's listening or watching right now. It's just to sit down and have that thinking time, like you said, like to put that into our calendar. I think just having every week to have a habit of that, have a ritual of that, of doing that. I think we would also become more effective and creative at problem solving, at diving deeper into things faster, and being able to break through any kind of challenges or obstacles. Because I know I've been one of those people when I like love to learn a lot and accumulate a lot of information, the content, but then the actual application and context of it has been previously a place where I've like fallen short in a lot of different times, and I'm like, man, why am I getting stuck with this? And I haven't had that thinking time to set aside and just like really sit with what's going on in my life. What are my challenges? Let's reflect. Let's go deep into what's the core, the root cause of these. And the more I get aware of that, probably the more patterns I can see, the faster I can get to those root causes, and the more awareness that I'll have on how to manage and navigate my challenges and be my greatest possible self.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love it, man. It's so cool. So, Ronan, let's keep diving in to making a bigger impact. What do you think most people are struggling with besides the context and applying things to their life? Why are people not making the impact that they are capable of?
I believe that a lot of us are transactional instead of transformational.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is that we live in this age now where the biggest booming business at the moment is educational material.
mm,
It's a $355 million a day industry. And partly because we're overwhelmed with content, we don't sit down and we're not able to apply that context. We just get more and more content.
mm,
So there is this huge need for people that can navigate that path and get people through and provide their value. Is what happens is that instead of being transactional, so for example, an accountant is transactional and they're discounted. Oh, you're just an accountant. You just sort out my figures at the end of the year. Okay, you save me some tax. That's great.
mm,
Whereas if you go to someone like a coach and say, well, look, I want to grow my business, and that coach takes you through a process and unpicks your blind spots, gives you the confidence, gives you the knowledge, gives you the context to grow your business, they're transformational. Because if your business grows 10, 20, 30%,
mm.
you value that far more than you value the accountant, even though potentially they might add up to the same thing. The accountant might say, well, actually, I've saved you $20,000 in tax, pretty early on in your business. And the coach might say, okay, your bottom line, you've grown your revenue 100 grand, but your 20% profit 20 grand. They're
Right.
about the same, but you value the transformational one far more than the transactional one.
Mm,
So for subject matter experts, they have this expertise, but only when they teach it to others is where the real value is, because that's where they're adding value, and that's where they're giving that transformation. And I call it the butterfly effect. If you create somebody who you transform them from being unsure, not sure what to do, to that transformation and that butterfly effect, they're the ones that are going to tell all their friends,
yeah.
oh, you've really got to work with Chris. He's an amazing coach. He does this, he does that. He's transformed me. He's really sort of turned my business around, or he's given me the missing piece of the key. So for a lot of people that are subject matter experts, they need to become transformational, not transactional.
Mm, amazing. So, what are people doing, especially coaches and people who are providing the content today on social media? What are they not doing that they could be doing differently to provide that transformation?
I suppose it's wrapping up the most part of their expertise. And some of you've probably done a lot of courses like I have, and
Mm-hmm.
what you tend to find is that sometimes it's just a dump of people's IP. Is
Mm-hmm.
all of this stuff, go away and learn it, and that will be great. But again, people sort of fall off the bandwagon. They reckon that 90% of people don't ever finish a course, that they've paid the money, they're super motivated. So it's allowing at least some of those accountability points within there to ensure that they finish the work as much as possible. You can't get 100% success rate, but you can certainly work with potentially a fewer number of people and have a bigger impact with them, instead of trying to sort of spread your message to everybody and then nobody applies it and nobody gets that transformation.
Yeah.
So that's just my personal feel on it, is that sometimes you need to go deeper and narrower with a certain topic or expertise or that transformation, rather than trying to be too broad.
Yeah. What because I want people in our audience who are creating content today to be empowered in their ability for that content, like the free stuff that they put out, to be more transformational. I'd love to have a little like brainstorming session right here on what would make the biggest difference for them, to get people to engage, to get people to show up to the accountability, to experience the accountability, to integrate into their own context. What do you think might be some tips on that? Do you have anything that comes to the top of your mind instantly?
Well, automatically, and we do this all the time, we tend to just talk about ourselves. Have you ever been to a networking event, shake someone's hands, what do you do? I do this, blah, 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 blah. And I've got 10 years experience. I've got 15 years experience. I'm ex-KPMG. I used to work for Apple, blah, 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 blah. What we don't really do is flip it around and talk about the other person and talk about the outcomes and what they want.
Mm.
And there's that famous quote that you can have anything you want in life if you just help enough people get what they want, which is
Yeah.
by Zig Ziglar.
Yeah.
And coming up with more content around what your client needs and wants, and I call it like a big promise. If you can wrap up your service in this big promise, at the end of this 8 weeks, you will have da da da.
Mm.
This is the end of what you need, and almost showing people rather than telling them,
Mm.
that can be the shift in how they attract the right kind of people, and also demonstrate more value of them, more expertise to the market.
Yeah.
Have I
Yeah.
explained that well?
Yeah, you did. And I think the ability to communicate what people are going to get, to talk to them in their language of what's important to them, their wishes, their dreams, their desires, as well as their frustrations, their fears, their what keeps them up at night, like being able to talk to that is you kind of get to really activate their motivation so that they want to get into action and do something about it. So I think that that's really powerful. I also I'm thinking about like creating an open dialogue with people. And what comes to my mind is, let's say a client is struggling with a specific challenge, and on social media, depending on the expert and the service provider and all that good stuff, but on social media, you could call out, hey, what's your best recommendation for people who are struggling with this? Then you kind of get your community engaged, and the people who are contributing, who are showing up, they care about that topic. So at one level, they want to contribute to it. They might want to be a part of a mastermind. They might want to be able to serve or help you with your mission, your purpose, whatever it might be. That's more of the, hey, what is your suggestions about this? The people who have overcome that have solutions, and that's a certain type of people, a group of people to tune into, which would provide value for your potential clients who are struggling with that specific challenge. The other way
Yeah,
is,
it's a show not tell. If you solve a problem,
yeah,
and I actually teach that part in the masterminds. If you can solve a problem consistently, you demonstrate that, and then you reflect that back to the market. First of all, you find out, is this a problem that enough people have? So you do your research, and then yes, you go back and say, this is the problem you're experiencing, whether it is getting more revenue from social media, whether it is SEO, whatever the sticking point is, and you demonstrate that. That's far better than saying, we do this, we do that. People don't care about your process. So you could be the world's best accountant, you could be the world's best social media expert. What they care about is results, and they care about themselves. So the more you can frame it around, this is the steps to follow, this is the process, this is how it actually works at the end, rather than the journey, that's what people gravitate towards. How are you going to solve my problem? That's it, rather than you talking about yourselves and how much expertise you've got.
Yeah, and I think it's knowing where your perfect clients are at as well, and what's their next step. I like to think of, what can I facilitate people to do next? What's their next step? Some people might have a challenge creating content that's engaging, that's great. A lot of people say they struggle with content creation, so you can create a series like 30 days of content creation. You can create challenges. You can create just ways for people to get involved and to take action. I think a lot of people are just they're overwhelmed with the content, and they're not doing enough. And so I think more invitations to be doing, whether that's joining a mastermind, whether that's participating in like kind of challenges or contests or different things like that, different facilitation. I think that's a big part of being a successful service provider and delivering the results.
Yeah, I totally agree. It is about action, because that's the only way you really learn, and you go from that conceptual, I understand that, to applying, and it ties perfectly in with the context versus content. It's only when you start to actually try something, that didn't quite work, let me test, let me adjust, let me ask someone else, let me find out what's the sweet spot for me, and how do I do that.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the biggest drivers for people to want to join a mastermind and grow themselves and be surrounded by a group of peers who they respect, who challenge them? What do you think some of those biggest points are? Why points?
Look, I personally believe that we've gone from this proliferation of information, and we've kind of moved from the knowledge economy, which everyone sort of talked about 5, 10 years ago when we all connected to the internet, to the not knowing economy. And that requires removing your ego.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, you've got to have enough of a small enough ego to say, look, I haven't figured this all out. There's no shame in that. Let me connect to other people that know what I don't know, that I can share my knowledge of what I know, and we can create this symbiotic relationship where we can all help each other with the stuff that we don't know. And one of the examples is that if you're in a mastermind and you've got a decade's worth of experience and the other 6 people in there have, that's 60 years worth of business knowledge, right? That's incredibly powerful. And you're all going to have some overlapping things where you all know this. Oh yeah, I all know that. But there's going to be a huge amount of stuff that you just don't know. And the speed that we are transforming in our economy with disruption, with new ideas, with new learning platforms, with different ways of doing things, it's impossible to keep up with all of that as well as service your clients, right? It's just you can't do it. So it makes sense more than ever to tap into other people's expertise and their ideas and their knowledge, rather than saying, okay, on top of my 40 hours a week client work, how am I going to spend 10, 15 hours a week trying to learn something new on top of everything else that I've got going on? And then something new comes on, and it's impossible to stay on top. So having that group knowledge, that mastermind, that from wherever it comes from. A mastermind to me is just even 2 people coming together and saying, hey, look, we'll catch up once a month. We'll keep each other accountable. We'll, what are you working on? Why is that important? Can I give you some pointers and help and some blind spots? That's still a mastermind. So you can do that without paying anybody, and you can still tap into someone else's knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like the likelihood that someone will let themselves down is so much higher than letting other people down as well. It's like if I know that every month I get to meet up with someone, or every month I get to meet up with a group of people, or even more often, bi-weekly or weekly or whatever it might be, that is motivation. It's huge motivation. I know for me it's been a big part of creating success. Continuing the 12-hour marathon is a product of all the guests who get to come on and share their message. Like I'm reliable because I know that there's people who are counting on me. First of all, I'm reliable to myself, and the secondary level of motivation is that there's people who want to get their message out in the world. And so I get to keep showing up for those people who are changing the world, who are counting on me to have this platform to help them make a bigger difference.
Yeah, and what you've got here is kind of like an API. It's another person's intellect. So it's not an API we all know in the software thing where you plug in and use that. It's an API of another person's intellect, and that still feeds into your learning, to the learning of your audience, and to paying it forward, rather than you always trying to learn everything yourself.
Man, I love it. And it's really helped me get a lot of clarity, especially at the beginning of doing this, because I've been doing it for almost 2.5 years. At the beginning, I was trying to figure out who I am, what is my message, so having people who I can have conversations with, and I wasn't necessarily directly asking people, hey, what do you think about this message? What do you think about this purpose? Does that make sense to you? That's not necessarily what I was doing, but I was having conversations with people who are clear, who are purposeful, who are ambitious, who are fired up, who are taking action, who are hungry. And that inspired and cultivated my own character being around that. And then the second thing is like having masterminds myself. Like that's been a huge change maker for being able to share, hey, this is the message that I want to share with the world. What do you think about it? And getting that refinement and getting that feedback. It's freaking priceless, man.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Matrix. Have you ever seen the first film? Like Neo downloads all those fighting techniques, and he goes, "Oh, I'll learn jiu-jitsu," and he learns jiu-jitsu. So you don't quite get to keep all those skills, but you certainly get to tap into it a little bit like the Matrix. But I'm sure, Chris, this show for you has provided insights and intellect and thoughts and knowledge, and again even some context around it, because you get to ask some really good questions that have really sort of helped you sort of grow in your knowledge and your expertise.
Huge. Yeah, it's been so beneficial. So I think knowing the questions to ask, that's been a product of me being around people who are also asking great questions and a lot of question asking. Sometimes it's just the repetition of asking so many questions that like I get clarity on what questions should I be asking. And I love how you mentioned the 5 whys at the beginning to really get to the deepest level of questions and motivation and reason why we're doing things. Because when we get powerful questions, we get powerful answers, and we're able to really adjust our direction and our actions based on that.
Yeah, we tie this back into context versus content. We've read somewhere, how to do something, and we kind of know it, but until sometimes someone from externally comes and asks you those deeper questions, why do you want to do that? What's your motivation? What's your outcome? What will that mean to you if that happens? What does success look like? Why you focus on this versus something else? That you get that clarity and that outside perspective that you just don't get when you're stuck inside your own little sort of thought bubble of this is what I'm working on. And this certainly misnomer that all us entrepreneurs are busy working away on our own in isolation, coming up with the next genius idea. The reality is the exact opposite. Everybody has had help along the way.
Yep.
You've only got to look at the very first iteration of Facebook to what it is now. Mark Zuckerberg didn't come up with all that. He very quickly had mentors. They brainstormed better name for it. They changed the platform. They just did all these things. So it's a fallacy to think that Mark Zuckerberg had this vision from the very start of what Facebook would look like. He didn't. He got all this additional help.
Yeah.
Again, I call it, tapping into someone else's API along the way to transform it into what it is today. Yeah. So the more you can get those people that surround yourself with them in whatever form, free, paid, coaching, mastermind, mentors, whatever that is, that's where you are going to get your best self, and you're really going to draw out the person you're meant to become and the impact you want to make.
Yeah, 100%, Ronan. This is gold. I want to know, what do you see? Because you are well connected, you're well plugged in. You know people who are making a big impact, and you're growing with those people. You're providing masterminds for those people. What do you see coming, or what are you most excited about in the coming months and years that you see yourself making a bigger impact, or seeing being really meaningful for the world as a whole?
Oh, well, I truly believe that the mastermind concept will just grow and grow. So 2-3 years ago, I at a networking event, explained to people what I do, and they'd never heard of it. So a couple of months ago, Tony Robbins launched a mastermind together with Dean Grazioni, I think his name is. I hadn't heard of him before, but Russell Brunson as well from ClickFunnels. So it's kind of gone mainstream. So it's gone from being this very, very niche, it was like Fight Club, no one talks about it, people are in these groups, but it's not very well known, to being something that's out there. And I talked about it earlier, about the fact that with the rapid change of everything we need to do as a business owner and be across, that we just can't stay on top of that. So the more we create these groups, these pods, we're interconnected with other people, that you never know what's going to come out of that. It could be a joint venture. It could be collaboration. It could be, I talk about leverage all the time in my masterminds. How do you leverage what you already have to have this bigger impact or more? Most people get stuck in, okay, I need to get one more customer. If you can find the kind of leverage that Tim Ferriss talks about, he says, I'd rather spend 4 or 5 hours or a week working out what's the one big domino that would knock over everything and make it irrelevant. And for some people, that is a joint venture or some kind of collaboration where somebody that you have a skill that's and a service that someone wants, and it's a natural bolt on to someone else, and you can help each other. That's how you leverage, rather than just trying to get one customer. Yeah. So that's what I'm most excited about. That I think more people will come together and collaborate more, because without it, it's quite a lonely barrow, just pushing that on your own in your basement, trying to become the next Facebook.
I love it. I love the leverage. Also, I don't know if you've heard of Jay Abraham. He's an amazing
Yep.
business, marketing philosopher. He talks a lot about masterminds as well. I think he shares about the example of, I think it was a motorcycle manufacturing company wanted to manufacture more motorcycles, and they feel like, man, I'm tapped out. How am I supposed to manufacture more motorcycles? And they don't have like any more capacity in their current warehouse or systems or whatever else it might be. And so I think Jay Abraham goes in with them and says, like expand and think bigger. I think someone went to like one of his seminars or something like that. Anyways, a year later, I think the person goes back and they say, we've grown so much, like we're like so expanded and delivering all these motorcycles. He's like, how'd you do it? And they said, well, we went to a lawnmower manufacturing facility that had all this extra equipment that they weren't using. And the motorcycle company made a deal with the lawnmower company to use their space, to leverage their space that they weren't even using. And it created like, I don't know, I think it was a couple 100% of increase in output and revenue because of that asset that they now had, this access to the machinery, to the warehouse, to the systems, and to the distribution and all this kind of stuff of the lawnmower company. And it's like, that's not 1 + 1. That's like 100 times 100.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone do it quite as well as Jay Abraham. I've read a couple of his things, and he can just one after another. He can show people the missing leverage that they need, and he's done that again and again. He's got hundreds of case studies like that. So he's just this type of person that can look at a business and say, to leverage it, you could do this. What about that? Why aren't you connecting with this person and sharing, as I said, some warehouse space, some other people's intellect, some systems that they've got, and tapping together. He's phenomenal at that. So yeah, when you said that, I'm nodding along, going, "Yep, that's just one idea from going to hear someone that has that different perspective that turns your business into this huge profit machine because it's something that you hadn't seen."
Yeah, wow. I love it. I love it, Ronan. That's awesome. So leverage is like the name of the game. Also, I wanted to speak to masterminds and also why it's so important, why it's blooming and blossoming, in my opinion, now more than ever. Because people, in my opinion, are looking for feeling like they belong, feeling like they're a part of a community that gets them. And oftentimes, like big communities come together, big seminars, things like that. Like that's cool. It's cool to go connect with people like ourselves who are in that kind of environment. And the mastermind environment that meets once a week, once every other week, once a month, once every 3 months, whatever it is, that's a group of a smaller number of people. It's like a tribe. It's like you're able to create highly precise, not a bunch of hundreds of random people who are all over the spectrum, but a highly precise group of people depending on the intentionality of the founders, of the group members, and who they allow in and who they don't. But it's like super cultivated, super precise, and that group has the ability to be a tribe and be so in harmony, so connected, so aligned in their direction that it just creates astronomical results. It creates like such greater growth than if it's just a random group of people who are into personal development or into business or into online e-commerce, right? It's like people who see the world the same way or a similar way, and they're able to share that perspective in a meaningful way that makes a big contribution to others. And I think people will continue looking more and more for those small tribes of people who get them, who understand them, where they can just go be themselves and just like love who they are and not feel like they're judged. Know that there's people who relate to them, and it's like family. It's like finally being home and feeling like they belong.
Yeah, I believe it's the evolution of Facebook groups. I think Facebook groups are sort of dying out now. Yeah. You get 2,000-3,000 people in a group, and when I've been in them, you want to contribute, but to have to scroll down through a question and then 7-8 answers until you finally go, well, actually that's been answered, or how do that? You can spend an hour on Facebook and really struggle to to find the right answer and not demonstrate your value, but give value to people or answer their questions, because it's just not a great platform for that. So you can spend an hour doing that and get nothing out of it, or you can be in a smaller group, as you said, a smaller tribe that are there every week or every fortnight, rather than just randomly dropping in and, I've got half an hour to spare, let me just jump onto Facebook and scroll through this group and answer questions. So yeah, creating those tight-knit, those tribes, those communities. Some of them are big, and that's fine, but some of them are quite niche, quite small, and that's the only way you can go deeper with somebody, and you can open up and really sort of create that connectivity that allows you to sort of really share your deepest fears, doubts, frustrations, because you can't do that on social media. You can't say, well, actually, I'm really struggling with this, because everybody has to be winning on social media. So it's the wrong platform. If you really want to change, you've got to, as I said, let go of the ego sometimes and say, look, I haven't got it all figured out. I need some help with this, really struggling. What do you think? And getting that honest opinion based on the fact that you're opening up and being vulnerable.
So good. Ronan, this is gold. We can tell that you've done this a time or two before. This ain't your first rodeo. So I appreciate all that we've talked about so far. It's been really, really valuable. And I want to encourage people how they can stay connected with you. What are their next steps that they can engage in to continue their journey, to maybe find a mastermind that's a great fit for them, and just how they can keep growing themselves. And then right after that, we're going to do the minute to win it, where you're going to share the best wisdom, encouragement about masterminds, about leverage, whatever you feel you want to drive home the conversation with. Okay, so let's first start with how they can stay connected with you, and what do we want them to do next?
They can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Ronan Leonard, the Mastermind guy. If they're looking to run their own mastermind, I can give you a link to a free program just to give them some ideas around creating world-class content and finding the message that will attract people to their own little tribe. Because the second you create a tribe, you become more influential. You become an authority when you teach what you know. So the value isn't in what you know, it's in what you teach. So they're the two best places. And accountability.io is my website. I've got plenty of resources around Mastermind on there as well.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. So accountability.io, and that's ECCOUNTABILITY.io, accountability.io, and they can find you, Ronan Leonard, RONAN space LEONARD, Ronan Leonard, right? That's how you spell everything? All good?
Perfect. Thanks, Chris.
Awesome. So how can people get this fire from you? Let's give them the minute to win it. The one person who's listening right now, and of course there's many more than that, but one person who you're speaking to, and they get all your encouragement, all your fire, all your wisdom, all your passion. Let's give it to this person, Ronan.
All right. So you've reached this point where you're pretty good at what you do, but you know there's more. You want a bigger impact. You want to create something that is going to pay it forward, create some kind of legacy. And we all want to create something bigger than ourselves. And it's not just an ego thing. It's a genuine, we're in small business because we genuinely like helping people. We want to solve a problem. So to have a bigger impact, you've got to teach what you know to other people. And that requires a growth mindset to say, look, I can play a bigger game. I can help more people. And the only way I can do that is to teach what I know to other people, so they haven't got to go through the hard luck, the problems, the frustrations, and the journey I went through, and I'm giving them that shortcut. And I can see that transformation, that butterfly effect of, hey, I've helped all these people. It's an amazing feeling. You would know it, Chris. It's an amazing feeling when you've taught somebody and they get it and they go away and you see them transform. So I encourage anybody that really wants to level up, wants to play at a different game, wants to do what they're meant to do and have that bigger impact, is to find a way to teach what you know.
Amen. Ronan, 100%. I vibe with that, man. That is 100% my opinion and perspective as well. Go teach, go share. Every single person's voice and message makes a difference. So own it. Own that fact that you make a difference in your life and your being and becoming your greatest possible self. And Ronan, this has been an absolutely incredible conversation. I appreciate who you are and what you're standing for, creating transformational results in people's lives, in these communities, in these masterminds that you are a part of, that you are creating, cultivating. And I'm excited to see even more of what you create in the world, man. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having the show, Chris. Really enjoyed it.
Awesome, man. We'll see you soon, okay?
Thank you.
All right, take care.